All right, day 3 of reading every day to become more articulate, the school of life. We're basically just talking about why therapy is the bomb. Pretty much talking to an unbiased person to help us work through our own problems. Why that's really good, because I think there's a lot of things that could be therapeutic. Listening. It's one of the structured flaws of these minds that is it immensely hard for us to think deeply and coherently for any length of time. We keep losing the thread. Competing irrelevant ideas have a habit of flitting across the mental horizon and scrambling our tentative insights. Every now and then, consciousness goes entirely blank. Left to our own devices, we quickly start to doubt the value of what we are trying to make sense of and can experience overpowering urges to check the news or eat a biscuit. As a result, as a result, some of the topics we need to examine where our relationship is really going, what we might do next at work, how we how we should best answer a letter, what bothers us so much about the way our partner returns our hand after an attempt at a caress. Caress? What is that? It's like cares but another S. Touch or stroke gently or lovingly. Oh, caress. Well, I'm stupid. Okay. Attempt at a caress. Founder into the mental sands to our grave psychological cost. What helps enormously in our attempts to know our own minds is, surprisingly, the presence of another mind. For all the glamour of the solitary seer, thinking usually happens best in tandem. It is the curiosity of someone else that gives us the confidence to remain curious about ourselves. It is the application of a light pressure from outside us that firms up the jumbled impressions within. The requirement our intimidations to verbalize our intimidations mobilizes our flabby reserves of concentration. Occasionally, a friend might be unusually attractive and ready to hear us out, but it isn't enough merely for them to be quiet. The highest possibilities of listening extend beyond the privilege of not being interrupted. To be really heard means being the recipient of a strategy of active listening. I'm pretty sure I've learned this like in school, like the active listening. Occasionally, a friend might be unusually attentive and ready to hear us out. Oh, wait, no, I just read that. From the start, the therapist will use a succession of very quiet but significant prompts to help us develop and stick to the points we are circling. These suggest that there is no hurry, but that someone is there following every utterance and willing us on. At strategic points, the therapist will drop in a mission critical and hugely benign do say more, or an equally powerful go on. Therapists are expert at the low key positive sound, the benevolent, nuanced ah, and the potent mm. Two of the most significant noises in the oral repertoire of psychotherapy that together invite us to remain faithful to what we are starting to say, however peculiar or useless it might have first have seemed. As beneficiaries, beneficiaries, as benefici- beneficiaries, as beneficiaries of active listening, our memories and concerns don't have to fall into neat, well-formed sentences. The active listener contains and nurtures the emerging confusion. They gently take us back over ground we've covered too fast and prompt us to address a salient point we might have sidestepped. They'll help us chip away at an agitating issue while continually reassuring us that what we are saying is valuable. They are not treating us like a strategically ineffective communicators. They're just immensely alive to how difficult it is for anyone to piece together what they really have on their minds. Yeah, and that's literally what I'm trying to do with reading. Like I'm trying to be able to be to articulate and follow a thread, a strand of thought, and be able to say that out loud without like bouncing here and there. Because that's what I really have a problem with. Is just that. Time. Therapy is built on the understanding that we will not be able to transmit our key experiences in one or two self contained blocks. We live in time and have to decode ourselves at different periods. Things emerge, things emerge, sometimes very slowly, over months. We can't be in all the moods we need to access on every occasion. Some weeks we find us readier than others to investigate particular memories or consider certain viewpoints. So long as we keep showing up and sharing, we'll drop enough clues to assemble, eventually, a psychological portrait of the self, like an ancient vase slowly being pieced together from the fragments scattered across miles of sand. Interpretation. The therapist's active listening is not meandering. What underpins what underpins it is what, under, what underpins it is an see I kind of messed up. What underpins it is an attempt to understand, for our sake, how the subterranean operations of the past are affecting the present. We arrive in therapy with questions. We have presenting problem that hints us, but does not fully capture the origins of our suffering. Why? For instance, do we appear so repeatedly to fall for people who control and humiliate us? How can we be so convinced we need to leave a job and yet have been remained unable to locate a more satisfying replacement for so long? Why are we? Why are we so paralyzed by anxiety in every public context? Why do we sabotage sexual possibilities? By their questions, their intention, their careful probing and investigative stealth, the therapist tries harder than anyone may yet have done to discover how a presenting problem might be related to the rest of our existence and, in particular, to the turmoils of our childhood. Over many sessions and successions, a small discoveries. Over many sessions, a succession of small discoveries contributes to an emerging picture of the source of our emotional wounds and of the way in which our character evolved defenses in response to them in a manner that hampers our possibilities today. We may, for example, start to sense how feeling a rivalry with a parent led us to retire early from a workplace challenge in order to hold on to their love, as well as seeing, perhaps maybe for the first time, that the logic of the self-sabotage no longer holds. Or we might perceive the way an attribute of aggressive cynicism, which restricts our personalities and our friendship, might have had its origins in a parent who let us down at a time when we couldn't contain our vulnerability, and thereby turn us into people who try at every juncture to disappoint themselves early and definitively, rather than risk allowing the world to turn down our hopes at a time of its own choosing. But it's no good strategy any of this too starkly. An interpretation delivered in its bare bones will be anticlimactic and pathetic, and most likely prompt resistance or aggression. For the interpretation to work its effect, we as clients need to move from merely assenting to it intellectually to having an internal experience of the emotions it refers to. We need to feel for ourselves rather than take on trust, the pointed drama undergone by the person we once were. There is, in this setting, no point in being too clever. An intellectual understanding of the past, though not wrong, will by itself be effective in the sense of back this up. In the sense of being able to release us from our symptoms. For this, we have to edge our way toward a far more close-up, detailed, visceral appreciation of where we have came from and what we have suffered. We need to strive for what we call an emotional understanding of the past, as opposed to a top-down, abbreviated intellectual one. We will have to re-experience at the novelistic level of detail a whole set of scenes from our early life in which our problems around fathers and mothers in authority were formed. We will need to let our imaginations wander back to certain moments that have been too unbearable to keep alive in a three-dimensional form in our active memories. The mind liking, unless actively prompted to reduce most of what we've been through to headings rather than the full story, a document that it shelves in remote locations in the inner library. We need not only to know that we had a difficult relationship with our father, but to relive the sorrow as if we were happening to us today. We need to be back in this book-lined study when we are not more than 6. We need to remember the light coming in from the garden, the corduroy trousers we were wearing. I need to help enunciate too. I know enunciate. the sound of our Father's voice as it reaches its pitch of heightened anxiety, the rage he flew into because we had not met his expectations, the tears that ran down our cheek, the shouting that followed as we fled out the corridor, the feeling that we wanted to die, and that every day and that everything good was destroyed. We need the novel, not the essay. Psychotherapy knows that thinking is hugely important, but on its own, within the therapeutic process itself, it is not the key to fixing our psychological problems. It insists on a crucial difference between broadly recognizing that we were shy as a child and re experiencing in its full intensity what it's like to feel cowed, ignored, and in constant danger of being rebuffed or mocked. The difference between knowing in an abstract way that our mother wasn't much focused on us when we were little and reconnecting with the desolate feelings we had when we tried to share certain of our needs with her. Therapy builds on the idea of a return to live feelings. It's only when we're properly in touch with our feelings that we can correct them with the help of our more mature faculties, and thereby address the real troubles of our adult lives. Oddly and interestingly, this means intellectual people can have a particularly tricky time in therapy. They get interested in the ideas, but they don't easily recreate and exhibit the pains and distresses of their earlier, less sophisticated selves, though it's actually these parts of who we all are that need to be encountered, listened to, and perhaps for the first time comforted and reassured. All right, that's all I'm gonna do today. Peace.